Hello, and welcome to 15. My name's Luke, and I'm joined by Dan. Hi, Dan, how are you?
Hello. Yeah, good, thank you. How are
I've,
you?
I've managed to get away from the intro for a few months now, but I'm on foreign soil and I'm flaring around, so I just needed a bit of regularity.
Hello there.
Yeah, I'm in Belfast. First time I've been here.
Where are you now? You're in Belfast.
I wouldn't come back in a hurry, put it that way.
Would you watch the film there? Have you watched the film there?
No, I was expecting it just to be on projector all the time around the city centre, big screens, but seems as though
Is
they
that
don't
what
like it as much as
projectors
you.
are? Is
Sorry?
that the universal sign language for it as well? You know, projector, big screen.
Dan, as always, his visual comedy is a nice little head to mention that we are on YouTube. So if you want to watch this, the link's in the bio, and you can watch us making as many hand movements as
Are you getting that
fancies fit.
transcriber? A nice little head to our YouTube video.
So you might not remember this, Dan, but the last time we chose to watch Windfall, I watched it about 4 weeks ago. I hope you watched it slightly more recently than me. What did you make of
I
it?
watched it 3.5.
What did you make of it, Dan?
Oh, I've got paragraphs. You want me to read the whole thing or just in brief?
No, we'll just pick up some notes. So I'll start then. Let's start with Lily Collins. Now, do you know who she's the daughter of?
Yeah.
Do you? Go on.
Phil.
Phil. Phil Collins' daughter. I wonder how she made it in Hollywood. Some people are just lucky. You know what I mean?
They are. They are.
Some people are just lucky. So what did you make of this? So this is a
You know what her you know, it was lucky that she was in a relationship. Yeah, you know I'm going.
Yeah. I don't know. I knew what the genesis of that joke was, but I couldn't quite work out what it was gonna. Yeah. So this is a slow burning thriller. Does it catch light for you in
Is
the
it?
end? Yeah, it is. It's slow.
I think it's a well made and well crafted film. I'm not sure it's particularly innovative.
Yep.
And I don't think it really is very captivating or brilliant.
No, I'm agree with you there. It felt a little obvious to me. It felt, if anything, a bit ponderous. Everything was very deliberate, but to be a thriller and to have it be this lean, the screenplay has to sing, or the actors have to help it sing off the page, and that didn't come across to me. Don't get me wrong, I think some of the performances were pretty good. Obviously, there's literally only 4 people in this film, and the 3 main lead performances were all pretty good. Like no qualms about that. But the screenplay just they didn't have enough exciting twists really, and any twists that did happen, I think they felt a little bit contradictory to the characters themselves. I didn't really believe what was going on.
I felt it just was a bit. It felt quite A level or film student because there was too many what I would sort of characterize as sort of film theories or theatre theories on show. There was kind of a Chekhov gun theory, and I felt like you could kind of put all these down to sort of academic interpretations of film and theatre, then put through this kind of prism of almost a Hitchcockian vibe, because I felt that there was kind of elements of that. So
Yeah.
it all kind of felt very homagic, if that's a real word, or constant nods to, but isn't in Psycho the fact that he kills off the main the protagonist in the first half an hour, isn't that the genius that we're then constantly searching for the answer and the resolve, whereas this didn't quite have that level of brilliance because we've already seen that before. It's too much of a copy and not original enough.
Yeah, I take the homage. I mean, one way which I thought was quite good is in the score. That's really fun. That's throwback. That's having a bit of fun. And I think within the setting as well, with where the place is, the landscape, that was gorgeous. Like the house is very much fitting of a billionaire's retreat. But yeah, I know what you mean. Especially in the film theory stuff, like it used motif a lot. But I quite liked some of that. Like it used the footstep one. That's the one that comes to mind me with the steps. You know what I mean? You're always looking down at her feet. It's like, can she take the next step? And it's 2 sides. At one side we've got like the unknown / freedom, and the other side it's like certainty but shackles. And it's like her taking this step, and I guess that's how the film finishes. But it just left me wanting more. I give it the benefit of the doubt, expecting something quite good was going to happen. It never really did, but it was, it was fine. It was serviceable.
I I don't know if because there was so much going on, the kind of the motifs ran dry for me, I think, and that you then start seeing them before they're happening. So him tying his shoelace throughout the whole film, oh, okay, I'm seeing that beat before it's coming. They're too obvious. The moves are too predictable.
No, 100% get that. There was some nice elements though. I mean, the thing is, if you take it as a baseline, the three actors, good, like the setting, good, score, good, and then the concept of there's an intruder here, and you're playing off this Stockholm syndrome or quasi Stockholm syndrome, or is it even that at all? With like these unresolved marriage issues, and stuff is interesting. But it had a lot of source material to make this to elevate this film, and it just sort of didn't.
I actually disagree. I think it was all quite surface level. And actually, I've put that they were good and enjoyable to watch. I just don't know if there was much depth to them. I mean, did we ever? I can't even remember. Did we ever find out why he was robbing? No, there was no real development, which I quite like.
Yeah, no, it was the job, wasn't it? And what the billionaire stood for, and he had put people out of work, and he was one of the people that had gone out of work. And even that felt like a bit of a cop out. Like, I didn't want that answer. That was like the answer that everyone would have gone to straight away. So I do set that point. Like my entire evaluation of this film basically comes back to the idea that like good is the enemy of great. Do you know what I mean? Like it's perfectly fine, it's perfectly good, but it didn't push itself to become great. And sometimes you have to have weaker areas. But as a whole, you go
more
further.
Harmful than good job.
Yeah, very good. A bit of whiplash for you there. Have you got any more to add on this then?
No, I mean, I think it's just captured by what I said about it. I think it's too much of a copy and not original enough. And I feel like in other hands, you get that premise of guy gets caught burgling house. If you were to give somebody that brief, I think there's 20 different films that could have been made. And I think this is in the first half of, that's a decent answer. I'm not sure that is in the 10. Okay, nice thought, nice twist, nice play. But I feel like they were sat next to the guy who came up with the great stuff and sort of copied a few of his bits. That would be my metaphor for the film.
No, very good. Yeah, it feels like
I don't think, though, as a recommendation, I wouldn't recommend it because it's too slow. And actually, if there was ever a film that should be 90 minutes and could have done with a lot, you know what I mean? We get it. It's still, there's not a lot happening here. So you don't have to tell it 20 times that there's not a lot happening. I get it.
I guess what they tried to do was they're waiting for this money. They're waiting. And that's meant to be growing in tension. And you put yourself into one specific location, which is I like doing that. But that means you write yourself into a corner as a screenwriter, and you're saying all I can do is in this room. I can't rely on any weird plot. I've got to rely on the screenplay. And once again, it just wasn't good enough. What are you giving this out of 10?
I gave it 6. I'd probably revise it down to a 5.
Oh, maybe 6.5. 6.5 is fine.
5. I'll go with 6 then. I'll keep on my original score.
Okay, let's get to this week's films. We've had 4 weeks, Dan, to pick some absolute corkers. So what are we starting with?
The ones we had 4 weeks ago. Not changed at all.
And so we're starting with
Death on the Nile.
Okay, so Death on the Nile. This is the second installment of Kenneth Branagh's attempt to reinvigor the Agatha Christie sleuth.
Didn't know it needed it.
Exactly, we'll come to that.
Have you seen the first one, Murder on the Orient Express?
I have, yes.
Oh, we both have then. Okay, interesting.
I didn't like it.
No. I enjoyed its company, but found it pointless.
I'm on Death on
the Nile. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Copy and paste. Yeah, okay. Well, where do you want to go with this one? Because I've not got huge points of this. I've more got comments.
I want to just use it as a springboard and talk a little bit about the deep fake sort of what's the word? Wave craze that seems to be going through films, especially sort of pioneered by Disney. This idea of taking actors and making them digitally look much younger than they are. So they kind of did it in the Marvel film, and they started doing it in the Star Wars franchise to basically, get these actors to look younger. Do you think it's successful? Do you think it's needed?
Where was it in this? Where's it in this?
when he was in the trenches at the beginning.
Oh, right. I didn't know that was that. I thought it was just this weird glistening veneer on the film.
No, it was, he was made to look.
I don't know if you're going to give these multi-million-pound companies new toys, they're going to use them. Do you know what I mean?
But I agree with you, but I don't know. I think there's time and a place when it's successful.
Like it's like one of those things where you always, I guess, well, I'm about to say we can always spot it, but apparently I didn't. But like the other one is if it's even slightly out of sync, the audio with the lips, you're going to spot that. And whenever it's fast forward, like an action scene, if someone falls over and they speed it up, you can always spot that as well.
Yeah, funny talking about this. Anyway.
Yeah.
I just found it a bit, I don't know, in this supposed grittiness of World War One to have this sort of glistening, very visible, deep faking bit of modern technology sort of didn't quite sit. Mm-hmm. And it all felt a little bit, that whole kind of sequence felt a little bit pantomime.
Oh, c'est alors,
yeah, Lumiere. To me, it's, I know what he's trying to do, so it's maybe almost, well, maybe not, but similar-ish to the Beauty and the Beast. What they tried to do is, for an Agatha Christie show and like a feature film, whatever, an hour-long episode, you know what you're going to get. Everyone's showing up to the same location. The sleuth is there. You hear about, everyone seems happy on the surface, and it goes through.
We see the three-toed sleuth.
And eventually you've got a few suspects. And what he's trying to do is he's adding backstory, so we don't get anywhere near the boat. First of all, in the first 15 minutes, we're not on the Nile.
We're still in France and then London.
We've been introduced to about 4 characters, one of which is Hercule. So he's trying to add backstory, he's trying to take him out of it, and he's trying to deconstruct it a little bit. And I kind of don't want that. I know it's difficult to say, well, what's the point in making it if you're going to make the same thing? But I would say, what's the point in making it anyway? Like, this to me completely feels like this sort of analogy of the rich kid who, like, gets what he wants. Like, Kenneth Branagh, I want to be Poirot. I'm going to have this film. I'm going to direct it. I'm going to get to be the person I've always wanted to act and play as. And it's just like, I don't really want to sign up to be one of the peasants letting the king parade his, you know what I mean, his ornaments. Yeah. Like, it just feels weird to me, this.
The first film, I know we should judge this film, but the first film felt like that. He had Johnny Depp. Shouldn't have said that name, actually. But no, he had Johnny Depp. He had Judi Dench. He had Michelle Pfeiffer. He had these big... And again, this film has drawn big-ticket items. Again, Armie Hammer. Oh, shouldn't say him. French and Saunders, Gal Gadot, but big...
No one, Dan, you're the only one that still thinks they're big-ticket item. It's French and Saunders.
No, but you know what I mean? It's drawn names
who's who.
People know. Yeah, exactly. And you're totally right. It feels like it's a chocolate box sort of selection of actors. Yeah. Kenneth Branagh, Kenny B has gone, I want to work with them, and they want to work with him, come together to be in my project. And isn't sort of part of it the mystery, isn't it? They've sort of done this in the Harry Potter films, that Dumbledore, is the wise and, magical figure. And that's what he is. And J.K. Rowling in her stories floors him, naturally. What the films nowadays do is they take that another step, and we now get the backstory to see why he's flawed. But that takes the edge off the shine. So Hercule Poirot, we know he's a genius. We flat out believe he's a genius. That's what he does. He turns up and he's a genius. And there's a little bit of story. We don't need to know that in 1914 he was in France and was a genius, and then his captain died, and that gave him a horror. It's too much. It's too much. I get it. I'm happy to accept some things on face value.
No, I get that as well. And I think maybe going back to the performance, because that's kind of what the centre of this is. Like, my mum is a huge Agatha Christie fan. Yeah. Like, she named our first dog Agatha. She's read all the novels. She loves it. And
your middle name's Christie.
My name is Christie.
Your dad loves Tony Christie.
My middle name is
forever singing.
And she basically said, I said, what is this film? What is it like? And she's really excited about it. And she went, well, it's just about him. Everything is just about him. And I get that. Like, he's not charming. He doesn't ooze the suave of like a David Suchet. Like, he doesn't. And it just, once again, it feels a little bit forced, manufactured.
Yeah.
He's seen it. And he isn't exactly doing a new take on it, is he? He's doing a slightly different voice, a slightly more ridiculous voice, to be honest. And a slightly bigger mustache.
I really like that word manufactured, because I always find with these films, I've written the word gloss, and it seems like unnatural. And I think that is what is a product of what you've said, this manufactured, in that nothing feels real. The grit, rather than being gritty, feels placed. The style, the Ritz, the razzmatazz feels unnatural. It feels staged. It feels molded, like it's been put into a mass produced on formula, and that you'll get this in every scene, rather than there being an element of truth. And rather than dressing a real club, they've gone and built a set, and it's all a bit what somebody thinks it should be rather than what it is.
I agree, and it misses that human touch in a way. Like it's not funny. No. This Poirot isn't funny, and like I know they sort of play on the fact that he's flawed, but they do it through this like weirdly forced OCD scene, and it's just not. It's not enjoyable. I tell you something else, which is probably going to make me just like a pompous twat, but it's not meant to be. But it's this idea of
make you look. Sorry,
this film is like sort of like an M&S paradox to me. How M&S is meant to be this. Oh, it's so posh, right? But it's not, by the clientele who think it's posh. By using it, basically make it void and futile. It's not posh anymore. And that's this sort of film, in the way that this is meant to be sort of not high concept, but high concept for a certain demographic of Avocrasti. And it's kind of
Avocrasti.
I don't want to say like
Avocrasti.
I'm trying to stay away from pigs to a trough in my it just feels. I don't know. Like people that enjoy this film, I don't think I'd get on with them.
No way to talk about your mother.
Yeah, well, she did enjoy it. She's a very intelligent woman. Let's talk about Arnie Harmer then. We mentioned it briefly.
Okay.
So this is really interesting because this is the only case I've seen of a huge sort of this cancel culture movement on someone. And it happened slightly after the film was recorded. And Arnie Harmer's part is so big that they couldn't take him out of it. And they just went, we'll just put it out. Let's see what happens.
On Disney Plus and
and it didn't do very well. I mean, it did well, but it didn't do well enough with the budget it had to sort of justify it. That's quite interesting, isn't it? I don't have too much to say on this, but it's something to bring up, isn't it? There's allegations against Harmer.
Maybe they'll be in the water, the allegation.
Also, one other thing, I think tripwires are absolute bollocks. I was watching Blade Runner 2049 earlier.
Yeah.
It happens in that one as well, where in that
Have you ever been tripped over by a wire?
It's Vegas, and it's this entire casino, and there's these random tripwires, and we're meant to believe the residents or the people that know exactly where all these tripwires are at all points, but the intruder always is the one that trips them. That is nonsense. Like, if you had tripwires in your house, you'd accidentally trip one off.
We're getting back to the...
French and Saunders.
No, the hospital argument I made in... What the fuck was that film called?
It was Da Vinci Code, second one, Angels and Demons.
Yeah. How do you always know how to pursue people through hospitals? They're labyrinth-type places. Very confusing.
Let's try and end with one more comment, something good. Have you got anything good to say?
Oh, I was going to say another negative thing.
All right, good. Say a negative one. Say that again, sorry.
Accent heavy. But I think it just falls back into that manufactured, that it's all caricature rather than, true. Actually, I have got one thing, which is maybe a question, a philosophy, a thought to end on. Do you think if this was to be super, if somebody said in Disney, right, we're going to greenlight these and I want you to make 8, do you think he'd ever do some of the more obscure Poirots, or will it only ever be Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, I can't even name anymore.
They're the main two, yeah.
Chocolate Teapot. Yeah. Mousetrap, that's her, isn't
it? No, what? Anyway, so, yeah, no, obviously you've answered, it's a leading question, you know the answer to that one, Dan. Actually, one other thing I would say is I enjoyed the voyeuristic element. Like, I enjoyed that scenes were playing out in front of Poirot and he was watching them, and where the audience sharing that with him, and he's seeing, this.
You've rather seen it from his eyes, though.
Yeah. Got a bit of a mustache in the way. That would have been good.
Very Peep Show.
We're not watching this, are we?
No.
No, lovely. Okay, let's move on. So, Dan, next up, this is The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Now, I had no interest in watching this whatsoever, but Dan, for some reason, has been pushing it. I think he's working on commission. So, we're doing The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is only coming on our radar because Jessica Chastain won the Oscar for Best Actress this year.
just after Will Smith.
Yeah.
Say no more.
Well, I've said this. I've been on this topic for a little bit, but the Academy is obsessed with
Cancel
biopics, winning in leading acting categories. Like female-wise, in the last 4 years, 3 of them were Jessica Chastain, Renée Zellweger, who was like was it Judy Garland or something? Who was she?
Yeah.
Something like that. And then Olivia Colman, obviously one of the queens. I don't know which queen it was. And then in the males, we had like Will Smith, who's Serena Williams' dad, Rami Malek, Queen, Gary Oldman, Eddie Redmayne won, Daniel Day-Lewis won recently. Like, they're obsessed. Lincoln. Remember when he was Lincoln 10 years ago?
Recently?
Yeah, well, I'm going to make my argument work, Dan. So I don't like this obsession with biopics. Like, Dan, as an actor, canvassing to an actor here, surely it's much harder not to do a biopic where you have to lift from the page and sculpt a character with the work of the director rather than just looking at someone on YouTube.
That's the argument, isn't it? Because when are you doing... I suppose somebody would... To play devil's advocate, it's far harder to convey a convincing performance rather than to do impersonation. You hear comics talk about this all the time, that you're not doing the true character, you're doing an impersonation. So you're either heightening... certain attributes, or are you just copying? How do you add human elements? How do you add depth to a character like that? It's very easy to do Freddie Mercury performing, but how do you do Freddie Mercury when he's at repose, I suppose?
So moving on to Eyes of Tammy Faye then. So this is a film that is
literally not going to engage in that conversation at all, that you started.
This is a film that's really about the power of religion. Now, what I want to see here is, I hope they show both sides of this.
I think they're showing only one side, and I think it's a negative side.
Okay.
I think this film is against them.
Okay.
Or against the facts, if you like.
So Tammy Faye is... I'm not someone who was previously aware of her. I'd heard the name, but I don't know where I'd heard the name from. But she's like one of these...
You're educated, Luke. Don't put yourself down.
Mega church pastors, isn't she?
Mega church!
And she comes and performs to people and makes a lot of money off it. And I think her husband was embroiled in some fraud. But anyway, we start earlier on with them two meeting. I believe Andrew Garfield is this said husband, and his performance definitely raised a few eyebrows.
Hi, it's 6:00 on a Monday morning, and I'm meeting Tammy Faye. And suddenly, my life's a blur.
Yeah. So I guess what your channel was trying to get there, apart from doing a Tick Tick Boom impression, was Andrew Garfield's character feels like he's almost panning for laughs. It does feel comedic.
Yeah,
and I don't.
Insincere, I put, but I think that might be intentional now. It's too. What you've just said, panning for laughs. It's too comedic for it to be anything but. It has to be. He's a good actor. He's,
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he's doing. You wouldn't play this character like this unless this film was against the idea of kind of this faith megachurch, kind of con, as Louis III would call it.
Yeah. Well, don't put words in his mouth.
I don't need to. He's done documentaries on
it. Are they films? So off a discussion, Dan.
Luke thinks they're not.
Dan, I couldn't take eyes off cheeks during this film. Yes. This felt like the poster for anaphylactic shock. Like Tammy Faye's cheeks, Andrew Garfield's cheeks. Oh, these weird.
Does anaphylactic need press?
It's just not getting the coverage it used to, then.
EpiPens have got a lot to be said for them.
So I guess what this film is trying to do is, this is a sweet young woman that was in a culture that was encompassed by God, and it bleeds and creeps into every aspect of her life, and that's the direction she went in through choice or whatever. This is what they all believe. And she has found fame and fortune through that, but I imagine she also becomes lonely through that as well. And it's her dealing with the changes in her life and in her status. But we don't see any of that. What we see is incredibly boring, dull, dweeby, narc, lamey characters trying to be funny and interesting, and there's no dynamism at all in this first.
Well, I'm actually going to sort of slightly counter you there. I think there was dynamism in the very opening. I really enjoyed that with this kind of, and I've said it before, I quite enjoy how they kind of, when you into cut, live kind of documentary, well, no, like news reports and the thing, gives you real background and widespread background, I think, at quite a quick opening. I quite enjoyed that, and I liked how we then ended on her eyes and had that sort of talking head of her. I thought, okay, this film's going to be quite interesting. It's going to be quite, sharp. And then we go to this flashback where there's a kid actor. Without these don't break the rule, do they? That you shouldn't work with kid actors. But there's like a shadow scene which I found really torturous, really sort of not nice cinema. Just ugh.
But I actually quite want to jump back on that because I like some of your points there. Yeah, I agree with you. The sort of archive footage for context at the start, that was really useful. Use like news anchors, wasn't it?
Yes,
to tell the story really quickly, how it's told through her fame to all the audience as well. That was really quite useful. But yeah, I mean, I didn't hate this silhouette scene as much as you. Like this, for me, this is showing that she has no one to talk to, and she almost uses the power of God to sort of verbally abuse herself and say she's ugly, you're never going to be anything. And that, I don't know, that shows the frailties and the insecurities that these kids have. I don't know, because I don't know, they speak of this culture of love with God and love, but in this instance it seems like you're almost having to live up to God's eyes and you're actually trying to reach for something, not happy with who you are.
It's sort of, I guess that's kind of maybe the point of the film, but didn't you also feel that there was an element of, I didn't quite know what they were trying to get at or who they were not attacking, but there's definitely a villain in this piece, and it feels like they haven't quite decided who it's going to be, because there was this element when she was, she's initially banned from the church, and so her mum is clearly the villain there, because, well, the mum makes out that it's the community who are the villain, but then she's openly welcomed with the community, and her mum, so obviously her mum's meant to be the villain, I take from that. But then is that defending this kind of church and this kind of indoctrination and this kind of immersion culture that kind of faith can bring? Or is it they're saying that it's kind of nurture rather than nature, and, it's parental kind of, that's what's made her insecure, her mum being called a harlot. And do you know what I mean? Is it playing along that line? Or is it actually going to go after, because then Andrew Garfield's thing seems very, he's a con man, but then maybe it's going after the individual rather than the group. But then the old lecturer who's talking is telling her, you're putting makeup on, you're ugly, stop being a wanton woman. So I'm unsure who the villain is. And I don't mean that in like a pantomime way, but I mean that in who's the
direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the antagonist if she is the protagonist?
Yeah, I guess that stuff's always it's difficult to do when you're working within the realms of biopics. You know what I mean? You have to show shades of people, don't you? Because
sorry, I just popped my own ear and the pressure up.
You know what I mean? Like you're using actual three-dimensional characters.
Yeah,
and so you do have to be careful in that realm. Would you recommend this one?
Had we not chosen the next film, I probably would have watched it.
Bring it on. Let's get to the next one. Just before we do, I just want to say, if you like this, you want to go back to listen to old episodes, we try and make them sandboxed. So hopefully, I know you can watch along with us in between episodes, but all the old catalogue are there. If you like them, rate and review, please. But yeah.
Just listen to them. We're a bit down on the numbers. Come on, get them up.
No, we've managed to break
out
through
to Columbia, Ohio. Columbus.
Ohio. Yeah.
And also Columbia, where the city of Ohio is.
Thanks to the Philippines and Morocco for new listeners there. The only continent we're still yet to hit, Dan, is Antarctica. We need someone in Antarctica who's on like a mission there. Please download an episode, please.
Penguins, listen in.
Okay, let's get to the...
Are we big in Japan?
So, okay, this one is what's playing in my head now. Alphabet, for those that wanted to know who that sings that. Okay, so this is Face Off. John Woo film.
I think they'll sponsor this episode.
I said to Dan, I have briefly...
They could do with the marketing as much as us.
I said to Dan, I have briefly seen this. I remember my dad was ill when I was about 10.
You watched the whole film?
And Yeah, no, briefly mentioned to you if I had seen it. My
Oh,
dad was there when he's watching a film at like 11 o'clock at night, and we just sort of moved the sofas and watched it. I can't really remember it other than the fact it's bonkers.
if you're listening in the teaching board of teaching association, if that's
I was
a thing.
I was 18. I was 18 when we watched it. Okay, Dan, this is John Woo at his best. This is bombastic, it's unashamable action. It's big. It's fingers up to the audience. It's fingers up to nuance. And it's just fun, isn't it? This is really
It's
fun.
exhilarating. It is. I just have one question.
Yeah.
The opening scene.
Yeah.
God.
Doesn't do. I thought that. So it doesn't really. You can't. If you've got.
I mean the very opening, not the set piece. I'm talking about
No,
where
I
he has
agree.
the mustache.
Right, if you're a brawler and you're fighting, you swing with iron fists. You don't really do tenderness well, and that sort of relates to this director. Like for me, it felt like a commercial for like a guardian angel to be like a sponsored dad. Like, it felt so weird. This sort of
Have your
carousel.
kids been shot by an elite assassin?
Yeah, yeah, the opening scene is horrendous. I'm a little bit questionable of John Travolta's acting all the way through this first quarter of an hour. But Nicolas Cage, let's get to Nicolas
Sorry,
Cage.
you can just take it back. I'm a little bit curious about John Travolta's acting. Full stop. Or if you need to add, since time began.
He's good in Pulp Fiction. He's good in Pulp.
And off the success that Pulp Fiction brought him, he did Face Off with
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage.
Played by Peter O'Toole, apparently. So
in many ways.
I like that. Like nowadays, baddies have to be like covert and tortured, but like if you're gregarious, you get caught. Do you know what I mean? Like in the olden medieval days, you're a history scholar, you know more it's been me, so correct me if I'm wrong. But like kings can just flaunt all their luxury and opulence because they're kings and they can touch them. Like
Yes,
that was the same
in the romantic
80s,
depictions of them.
in
yes.
80s and 90s films. The baddies are just these big baddies, and like
Yeah.
nowadays they're not.
No.
And I like these old baddies. I mean,
Yeah.
put that out there. Nicolas Cage sprinting around, screaming his head off, dancing and grabbing
With
women's
these
arse
two
in the
sort
chorus.
of something straight out of a Tarantino Kill Bill style guns with incredibly beautiful lacquering and
Gold.
intricate inlay. Yeah, I actually agree with you there. Who's one of the best villains of all time? Hans Gruber from
Oh yeah, from
Die Hard.
Die Hard.
Unashamedly just a villain. Yeah,
Unashamedly German. Yeah,
Hello.
they're good for
This is
baddies.
Alan Rickman on 299-242.
So
Please leave your message after the beep.
I'm gonna
Alan,
have to in the
Just
bio
reminding you.
put a link for all the fucking niche references. Okay, so Cage is mesmeric. Tick.
Yes.
Done. John Woo likes his action sequences. So let's get to that one. Now,
Okay.
the runway set piece is bizarre, and I had no idea where it starts, where it ends. Time is a flat circle. What's going on? Helicopters all of a sudden trying to land on a plane. Dan, talk us through what was going on there.
Just out of nowhere, these escaping on a plane, and then it's got to be 15 cars and a helicopter, and are chasing a plane, a jet. Just to clarify, in terms of speed, kind of, I'm no scientist, but if I had to draw a graph of what's faster, a car or a jet,
When he's on the jet.
but then they do this thing of they all stop at a moment of tension. Well, it's not moment of whatever it was, and then they're all back at full speed, and the plane is still not gone. How long's the fucking runway? It's crazy. It's ostentatious. It's fantastic. It's like a Bond sequence, an old school Bond sequence. That's what it's like. That's what it's like.
For me, it's like when you're at school and you're dying for a non-uniform day, so you can wear your new kicks, like your new trainers, and you walk and you think you're the coolest person in the world. For me, I reckon everyone on this film set thought they were genuinely making the coolest film ever.
Yeah,
listen,
this film thinks it's cool.
It does, and maybe it's slightly cool nowadays, but at the time, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of ironically cool. We shouldn't slander this too much. I enjoyed.
It had a video game quality to it. It was captivating. It made you were watching it. Maybe not for all the right reasons at times. Some of the dialogue is very ropey, and it's a bit.
I don't think Nicolas Cage has any sort of shackles or reins on him. I honestly think he gets to do what he wants. And I'm also very worried about pacing for this film. Like for 15 minutes, this is fine. You have to have a change of gears. Well, you don't. You either stay in 6th gear, fine, very hard to do, incredibly hard to do, and
Most
stay
cars
credible.
are only fitted with 5.
Yeah. Or you've got to have a change of gears, and I'm worried, especially with the opening scene that we saw, which was just fucking deranged of some kid on a carousel getting sniped in the head. Like, I don't think it has that range. This film.
Well, I don't think John Travolta has the range. In many ways, the Life of
I
Brian.
mean, he's in.
No, but doesn't this smack a bit of Heat? And Heat was excellent.
Heat was excellent, but Heat. Right, Dan, just quick, almost there, quick one. You've on one side you've got John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, and you've got Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. Like Esteem comes to mind there. You know what I mean? There's a bit of a difference.
No, but that, do you know what I mean? But there's none. Yeah, sure, I get it. I'm talking with. Yeah, just I don't know. There's elements of this film could be great. This film could be. There's these films that come along every now and again, and are just. I imagine like in the olden black and white times, black and white film era, they were the ones that had the very melodramatic, kind of piano underneath. And these films are great because they are unashamedly bold and brass and wear their hearts on their sleeves. But most of them become great because there's a slight element of depth. I hope, but I am doubtful this will have it.
Yeah, I'm slightly doubtful too, but very enjoyable nonetheless. And I think it has to be our pick, right?
Sure.
Right, so we'll get to watching this. I'm probably going to watch it on the plane. I'm going to download this and watch this back on the plane.
Nice.
That'll be quite fun. I have seen it's over 2 hours. Annoyingly. And also, Dan, do you know what the plot of this film is?
No, I don't want to. Don't tell me.
Oh my goodness. It's in keeping with the first 15 minutes. Let me just put it that way. A clue is what the name of the film is called, Dan.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Just because I said we would, I did watch Turning Red. I don't believe you did.
Everyone that wants to turn off the podcast now, fine. You know what? I'm not going to be annoyed, guys.
My overall thing is I really enjoyed, and we touched on this, that this kind of direction that Pixar seems to be taking. Like, it was bold, and I think it was good of them to try and challenge this topic. However, I feel that it lacked a little bit of confidence and conviction to carry this through. And so what it does is it devolves into quite a run-of-the-mill film. And I'm not sure if that's from lack of imagination or corporate pressures, but it feels very commercial. And because it's straddled between those two camps, it feels a bit token-esque rather than being the genuine kind of nuance that Pixar can do and we've seen them do before.
Ditto. Okay, we're back next week. Thanks, Dan.
Bye-bye.